Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Well, the world is swirling madly around us at this point. Israel's government is going to fall at any moment. Will Bibi reclaim his old jobs? Will Yair Lapid get his promised brief moment in the prime minister's chair? And with whom will President Biden speak when he visits Israel in several weeks? Next, the brutal, cruel war in Ukraine continues, with Russia now solidifying its grasp over significant parts of the country. Next, the January 6th committee may make criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. But does anybody out there really care? And will it make any difference at all? At times like this, what a relief it is to take a deep, life-sustaining breath of fresh air by studying our sacred text. It's a mechayeh, Yiddish word based upon the Hebrew word mechayeh. It's life-sustaining, life-supporting, life-giving. Our Sedra is BeHa-a-lotecha, beginning with Numbers chapter 8, verse 1 following. Sit back, breathe deeply, and let's together find some new reasons for hope. Our Sedra is a rich Sedra filled with verses that would become significant parts of our liturgy, filled with stories that continue to confound us, and filled with incidents that make absolutely no sense at all. What were those incidents? Shlomo Riskin lists them one by one. The people, still remembering the pain of the taskmaster's whips on their backs, begin complaining. Really, the Hebrew says, they're whining. And we don't even know what they were whining about. Perhaps they weren't grateful for the Exodus. Perhaps they weren't grateful for crossing the Sea of Reeds. Perhaps they weren't grateful for having received Torah at Sinai. We don't know. They moaned, they whined, and in response, God sends a devastating fire against the people. Then, apparently, having learned nothing, they start complaining again. Now they're unhappy with how they're being fed. They dreamed obsessively about what they remembered regarding their food in Egypt. Fish and cucumbers and melons and leeks and onion and garlic. And now, all they have to get them through the desert is the same old manna, everyday manna. Then more manna, same old manna. So Moses turns against God, asking how Moses, could ever satisfy this people's needs. So God sends an overabundance of quail, so much so that the people gagged on it. And while the people were suffering from extreme gastric distress, God sent a severe plague against them, killing all who had lusted and yearned for superior desert cuisine. And if all of this wasn't enough, Miriam and Aaron publicly gossiped against Moses. The siblings did not like the fact that their younger brother had taken a second wife, a woman from Africa, a black woman. Intentionally or not, Aaron and Miriam were significantly, actively undermining Moses' authority and thus undermining the authority of God. Again, God reacts with great anger. Miriam is afflicted with a terrifying skin disease, but for whatever reason, Aaron, the guy, escapes with no punishment. It doesn't end here with the close of our Sedra, by the way. Next week we will read of the people once again whining. They were being led to a so-called promised land, a land of which they had no personal or prior knowledge. They hadn't chosen the destination. They didn't know the kind of opposition that might await them. They didn't know if they would ever be able to possess the promised land. Before this incident is over, the Israelites will be condemned to wander for 40 years in the desert. This is definitely not a pretty picture. What's going on here? What's going wrong with the people who not so very long ago were singing and dancing with Miriam after they had crossed the Sea of Reeds? Why the constant complaints? Why do these complaints still rise up even after God had dramatically, painfully indicated that the divine wasn't interested in their ungrateful games? Riskin tries to explain. First of all, he said, don't be surprised at the Israelites' lack of gratitude. Despite the harsh desert conditions, they pretty much had it all. Their leaders were in direct contact with God. God had engineered their escape from Egypt. God had shared Torah with them. God was leading them. God was providing life-sustaining manna and water for them. And God had made some really important promises to them. It's not so strange that people who have received so much would regularly and consistently then up the ante, asking for more and more. People who are on the winning side of the game usually don't sit back and just savor their good fortune. They want more. The Israelites wanted more, always much more, rather than seeing the wilderness as a gateway to their freedom, rather than preparing for the full meaning of a life of freedom, rather than allowing themselves the time and emotion needed to deal with their good fortune. They quickly became addicted to demanding more, ever more, always more. Like that giant alien man-eating plant in Little Shop of Horrors, who also kept demanding more, ever more. Feed me, Seymour, feed me. Riskin turns to one of the greatest of all Holocaust and post-Holocaust thinkers, Viktor Frankl, for an answer. It was Frankl who famously said, catch this, pity the person who has realized their every dream. That person will cast about for something to strive for, to work for, but failing in that search, life becomes meaningless for them. Pity the person who has realized their every dream. The Israelites wanted their freedom. They got their freedom. The Israelites wanted the Egyptians to pay a price for their cruelty. The Egyptians paid a price. The Israelites wanted to escape from a hateful land. They escaped. The Israelites wanted to know that they were not alone in the world, that there was one, capital O, who would care for them. They found that through the covenant at Sinai. The Israelites wanted food. It was provided for them, and so they murmured. They complained. They whined. They rebelled because they were frustrated and lacking in a purpose for which to strive. They didn't know what they really wanted. They didn't know what was missing. And what they were missing was a sense of meaning and purpose in their lives. They were missing a vision. Riskin blamed Moses. Riskin blamed any leader who fails to instill a sense of transcendent purpose and meaning into the lives of the people whom they were leading. Riskin's closing words are haunting. Quote, "The people say, 'Give us meaning or you give us death. Inspire us or we will dry up and die. Ignite our souls and we will follow you anywhere.'" It was true then. It's true today. Give us a worthy leader who will help us fill our lives with worthy meaning, or we will wither and we will die. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Let's pray for worthy leaders. See you next week. Shabbat Shalom.